folks, and welcome to another episode. Well, you guys know me, I tinker around with a bunch of different stuff, and it's really hard to get motivated to work on outboards, which I need to do, I really do need to do, but I have my sister-in-law's thickness planer. It got damaged by somebody else that was using it, that used it wrong, and broke a few things on it. And she asked me if I'd take a look at it. Now, I've worked on this thing before in the past, and it had some screws that just came loose, and which unfortunately had damaged some small gears because they came loose, got bound, and broke. I fixed that problem, leveled it back up, I should say aligned it. I'll show you how I do that. It may not be the right way to do it, but I'm going to show you the way I do it. And get it back together and up and running again. We're going to show you how to change the blades in it. Now, I am not a planer expert by any stretch, but I am a okay mechanic. And I'll show you some of the features on this machine that I like, and some of the things they probably could have improved, I'll point out to you, and maybe why they designed this thing a certain way. The one biggest thing you can run into with this guy is on the bottom. We're going to dig in here, and I'm going to show you some things on the bottom where these gears have gotten messed up. When I received this, I brought it in, this head was all the way down against this table. Why? I have no idea. Why would you ever crank this head all the way down to the table? Because you're not doing zero thickness boards. So I'm not sure why it was down against the table, but it was jammed up tight against it. And the gear on the bottom, bevel gear, was broken. So when you do that, you cause there's a screw on this side, and this screw brings this head up and down when you turn this one handle, and I'll show you how that works. And so you gotta get it retimed, because one head moved before the other one did, the timing's off, is what I'll call it. And so this side of your machine and this side of your machine will be sitting crooked, either this way or this way. And what that'll do is cause your planer blade not to be parallel with your surface down here. Now, obviously I'm not sponsored by these folks. And I tell you what, I'm not much of a woodworker. I like to do a little woodworking every now and then. But when you start playing around with one of these planers, it's really kind of fun. After I repaired this the first time and ran some of my own boards through it just to make sure everything was working properly, I got to going, wow, these are fun, because you can take some really nasty looking pieces of wood and make them look gorgeous, ready for finishing and ready for a project. So they're not cheap by any means, but they are a lot of fun. So I'm going to get this one working again, and then we're going to plane some boards in there just to see how it works and make sure. I can also check from side to side on each one of the boards, make sure I've got my timing right so that this head is parallel to this bottom. Because the last thing you want to do is have a planer that planes everything off at an angle. That doesn't do you any good. You want flat boards, right? At least I think I would want flat boards if I'm doing woodworking. To each his own. So let's flip this thing over to its back. I'm going to show you what went wrong on the bottom side. I'm going to bring you up tight and close, and we're going to dig into it. So first things first, let's flip it over. And here it says, don't lift by this handle here to do work. Use the handles provided here. So we're going to lay it on its back here. And look at the bottom side. We're going to fix the first problem first. Now, as you can see here, when you turn this handle up top, there's a handle on top of the machine. When you rotate it, it rotates this bevel gear here and this bevel gear, and then there's a drive shaft that goes all the way across to the other side. And as you can see, it drives the other side. There's a screw, vertical screw inside here that this is moving. Now I'm showing you the one opposite side of the handle I'm turning. This is a screw inside here, and I'm hoping you can see this. We'll see if you can. But yeah, you can see that turns. And this has a thread here that's in a nut that's over in this area. That's on the top part of the machine. And what that does is adjust this part up and down. Pretty neat setup, pretty simple, right? Alrighty, first thing we got to pay attention to here is we've got 3 busted off gears, almost a 4th one here. Now, I don't know how this happened. Was it jammed all the way down against the table and somebody kept turning the handle thinking they were going to do something neat? Or another good explanation would be, did somebody get a piece of wood jammed in there and started trying to crank on it the wrong way, or it just jammed it and caused something to happen. I don't know. But what I do know is we're going to go ahead and replace all 4 of these gears on this shaft. In order to do that, it's a really, really simple process. Is you're going to take these 4 bolts here loose. There's 4 here that hold this shaft in place. But I think before I do that, I want to take this bolt loose, and that way I can use this gear to hold that in place while I try to break that loose. Let's see what size Allen wrench that may be. So it appeared to be a 3mm. So I'm going to go ahead and back off both of these 3mm. That one's already loose. So was that one. Those weren't hardly tight. And that's what happened last time, is these things backed off. I thought, well, at that time I just tightened them up and put some new bolts and new washers on it. This time I'm going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on it, because those could have easily vibrated off no tighter than they were. I like the blue Loctite just for the simple reason it's workable, but it'll help hold things in place. You don't want to use red or green Loctite, because you pretty much have to use heat to get those loose, and that doesn't work well for you, especially when you're dealing with plastic parts. This should lift right off. We'll set that down. The nice thing about the way this is set up, if I can see that there, is these just slide right on. They're the shape of the shaft back here. They've just got a drive dog that sits like there, and it's basically trapped. Since I'm working on this, I'm going to go ahead and put 4 brand new gears on it and save the other gears as spare. It would appear that all 4 gears are the exact same, so they're interchangeable. Smart design. All right, that was easy enough, right? Now we got to do the hard part. And I'm going to show you what that is. And that's making sure that these gears are timed with one another properly. I'm going to set this back upright and see if I can get you in there tight enough to see what I'm going to do to make sure that the planer blades are parallel to the working surface. Now what I've done is I've removed the blades out of here, and I've just got the round part of the rotating assembly here, so that the round part is pointing straight down. I'm using that as a smooth cylinder surface to level my head. Whether this is right or wrong is yet to be determined. I'm doing this for the first time again in a long time. So what I'm doing, I got me a precision angle plate here, and I'm bringing it down until it's just right there. It's just touching. So right there, it's just got a slight bit of drag on it. I'm using this like a feeler gauge. It might sound kind of interesting, but then what I'm doing is moving it to the other side, and then I'm gonna watch the rotation of my handle up here and see how many turns I've got to go in order to get this to touch. So right now, let's see, we're just gonna go quite a ways. I've gone 1 full turn. Almost 2 revolutions there, which is quite a bit. Yeah, almost 2 revolutions that this thing is out of whack. So now we're gonna have to flip it back on its back and make sure the handle side turns down 2 revolutions from the other side. So I'm going to crank this back up so the other side's where I want it, because that's the lowest point right here. So that's just touching right there. And each revolution, let me get back up here and show you something. Now right here on the handle that I've been turning, it is showing every 1 revolution equals 1/16 of an inch down. To do the math, you just take 1 divided by 16, and that'll tell you that this is 62.5 thousandths, 0.0625 thousandths down per revolution. So a 1/16 of an inch per revolution, right? The other math we're going to have to do once I get a little closer to this is I've counted the number of teeth that are on these gears. There's 12 teeth on these gears, so we'll take that 0.0625 divided by 12, And that'll tell me how much adjustment I can get out of each tooth. And that'll make some more sense here in just a minute. Let's go back to flipping this on its back. And let's get this handle turned about almost a turn and 7/8 down. That's going to get me closer. That way I can go back inside and I can actually use a feeler gauge and get me a precise measurement. Now, I didn't tighten all this stuff down really tight because I knew I'd be taking it loose again. What I want to do is create enough play right here in this gear so I can rotate this handle that's on the back side over here down about 1 7/8 of a turn. And that'll bring the timing on this side closer to the timing on the far side. That's too low. Or this side is too high. However you want to look at it. So I'm going to back these screws off here. Now, one of the weak links in this particular machine setup is the plastic gears. But also one of the good design things about this machine is the plastic gears. Because the plastic gears will give and be a weak spot that you could break these, and they're only like $12 a set. They're not that expensive, $20 by the time you get all the shipping. Compared to if you break a shaft or break something else, which is harder probably to come by. So my guess is by the design intent behind this is that this would be the weak point. Now that I've got this away from the gear, I can rotate this down. I'm going to go 1 7/8 turn. There's one, and about that much. Now I'm going to re-engage this gear. I apologize if you hear the heater in the background here. The high today is supposed to be, it started out at 17, the high today is only supposed to be about 33 or 34. So it's pretty cold out here, around here, but in the shop we're keeping it toasty warm. Now, we've got this re-engaged again. We're going to flip it back up and do the same thing I did before with my angle plate here. And this time I should be close enough that I can use feeler gauge to get a measurement. Like I said, I counted the teeth here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm sorry, 16. I think I said 12 before. So there's 16 teeth, which means for every tooth you skip would be 0.0625, the 16th of an inch that we can drop per revolution, right? So we're going to take our 0.0625 divided by 16 teeth, gives us 0.0039. So basically 4 thousandths per tooth. So now for every 4 thousandths that I'm off on the inside, I can adjust a tooth. Now, the crazy part is I probably won't be able to get this any closer than 4 thousandths, you know, because that's the increment adjustment I have. I don't believe there's another way to adjust it. Now, you guys don't be afraid to leave a comments down below if there's another way to adjust that even finer. Now, my background and being a machinist and a tool maker and a tinkerer of all sorts is I like to get that play around in 3 decimal places pretty comfortably and 4 decimal places. So in the wood world, not necessarily, I think that they always play down to that tight of an increment because it is wood. But I like to get it as right as you can get it right out of the gate. So let's flip it back up and do this again. Now once you've got it really close, by using my little skipping the gear technique, I'm talking relatively close, right? Let's call it less than a 32nd of an inch difference between side to side. I'm going to show you what's on this end of the machine. This is the machine side opposite of the handle. Now I've backed this nut all the way off so you can see it. These are left-hand threads on here. And you can see these little detents that are on here. That's what I like about this camera. You can see some pretty good detail. There should have been 2 of these set screws that have a little point on them. Can you see that little point? And that little point goes down and sits inside these detents and holds it in place. Now, what somebody has done, which I'll need to get one now, somebody has put a, for lack of better, having access to more stuff, put just a regular metric Phillips screw in here, it looks like, and just jam that down against there. Well, you can't just jam that down tight against there because that puts pressure this just floats inside this bushing up here. And what it'll do if you tighten it down too much is it causes it to push up against this screw and binds it up so it can't move. But what you can do now is you can adjust with this backed all the way off like this. Then I'm going to take my 22 millimeter wrench here and I can adjust this. As you can see, maybe you can, this is moving up and down on the screw. So I can sit here and make fine adjustments to get this lined up and parallel to the table the same way I was doing it before. So what I'm going to do is crank this back down. Here again, I can use my block underneath here against that shaft like a feeler gauge. Right now it's just touching it. And I can't slide it across because it's too tight. And I'm going to slowly raise this up till I can bring this block all the way across. I actually kind of like this. This is really nice for making this fine. That fine adjustment I wanted to make is something I'm able to do now. So what I've got, and I'll show you here in just a second. I'll go back to the far side with my block. Right there, it's just touching. I'll come over to this side. It's not touching. And I can lower it down until it just does touch. Right there, it's touching. Once I have it touching, I'm going to go ahead and put this set screw back in. And I'm going to take my wrench here and kind of wiggle back and forth. I'm going to back it off. I want to make sure that Allen wrench or that pointed set screw is going right down in the, and there it is, sitting down in the groove. So now it can't rotate. And I'm going to raise it back up and I'm going to go back down again just to see if it repeats. Right there, it's just rubbing on my block. And I got just a little bit of movement there, not much. So I'm going to back this off and go like 1 D10 away from where it's at. When I wiggle this wrench back and forth down here, I'm going to angle you down just a little bit more. When I wiggle this wrench back and forth, I can feel this set screw just settle right into one of those grooves. Now what clued me in that somebody had messed with this thing is I saw, looks like channel lock marks on here. And I thought, wait a minute, somebody's been in there fooling around with some stuff that maybe they shouldn't always fool around with, right? Now that I've got this thing adjusted properly, I'm going to go around to the front side and show you where I'm at with it. Now see, I've got that just finger tight there. That's, honestly, I don't think you want it any tighter than that. Because what you do when you tighten down both these nuts is they'll work against each other. And they'll bind on you. They need to work together. Now what I can get creative and do here is grind a point onto this here screw that they got here, but it won't be the same as this hardened point that's on here. So I think I will buy another set screw with a point on it. I like to do it right. And for now, what I'll do is I will stick this back in here to kind of hold that from moving. Being as I want to go ahead and run this thing and see how it works, I went ahead and ground a point on the end of that screw that was in there. Now it's not a hardened screw by any means, but it'll work for now. I have a little special pair of vice grips that I've ground a hole in. Worked out perfectly. I've had this for another reason before. Works out perfectly to hold it like this. See if I can get you less blurry here. I can hold it like this and spin it like this up against my belt sander to create a point. So that's what I did. Nice thing is I'll be able to go ahead and stick this screw back in here. Everything is adjusted properly right now. And snug that up. You don't want to snug that up crazy tight. Moves freely. Whole bunch of awesomeness there. Now I'm going to go bring you around to the front and show you what I was doing. Now what I've done here, there's no blades in this thing, and I've taken the flat part of the bar, or it's a rounded part of the bar here, And we'll find out if this is right or wrong, but it's got to be pretty darn close. It was all machined as a cylinder. And what I'm doing is you can see I'm rotating it right there, and I'm bringing this down until it just starts to rub my angle plate there. Right there. It's just lightly rubbing right there. I'm blocking your light so it's hard to see. Then what I do is I take this and I bring it to this side and I'm rotating it. And keep my big old hands out of the way. And what I'm feeling for is the same amount of drag. And right there is just, it's so close. I think if I move it another tooth, I'll be too far. What I mean by tooth, I mean on that nut on the one side. If I move it but one more detent. I'm going to go ahead and move it a little bit more. I did move it just one more detent. And now I've got a slight drag on this side. Slight drag on this side. And yeah, it's a little loose in the middle here, but there's nothing I can do about that. I rotate it. It's as straight as the machine's going to be, or as flat as this granite is on the bottom here. I'm going to call that good. Now I have both screws in place. They're just slightly snugged down. We're going to go ahead and put the cover back on now that we've got that adjusted properly. We're about ready to test this bad boy out, which is pretty exciting. Now I'm going to flip this on its back one more time. Now these screws here have lock washers on them, so I'm not going to put any blue Loctite on those. I'm just going to make sure they're snug. Maybe I can find some small lock washers for these little guys. Lo and behold, I had a couple of small lock washers that fit. We're just going to stick those on and forego the Loctite. That'll work. Bottom's all tidied up. Well, I thought I was going to have to buy a new set of blades for this thing to try it out. But the good news is these blades are double-sided. Hey, and if you guys go ahead and comment below, what's your favorite blade or best blade that you've used in your wood planer? Because I'll make sure my sister-in-law gets that information so she can make sure she always has good blades in hers. A good quality blade. So we're going to go ahead and hang these back in here. Looks like on this particular model there are bolts. These little springs sit right down in this little pocket right here on each side, on the ends. I suppose that's to help you remove this piece. I'm making sure there's no debris or anything. Actually, now that I'm putting it back together, I'm guessing the springs are for the, so you can just back it off a little bit, flip your blade around, and you're ready to rock and roll. I like that. I took these screws all the way out because I didn't know any better. Alrighty, we got the blades all installed. Everything adjusted just the way I want it. It's time to set it upright and see if we maybe send some little bit of wood through it, huh? And I guess the side with the switch on it's the entry side. So I'm going to flip this around so I can shoot the wood chips the other way. Let's pick up the rest of my tools. We'll give it a whirl. Well, let's fire it up and see how much noise she makes. Well, that seems to make a generous amount of noise, and let's find a piece of wood to send through it. There's a pretty clean piece of old pine. It's fairly wide. We got a couple pieces of wood we're going to try here. Let's just see what it'll do. Let's just do the small one first. to cut. Well, that was running through real nice. Gotta like that. Seems to be functioning again. Let's see how parallel my board is. Wow. Within 2,000 side to side on this board. That's 1" 450 right there. And wood is kind of hard. This is 1" 450, 1.5. That's as parallel as you're going to get. That's absolutely beautiful. Let's see how it does on a bigger piece of wood. Wow, that came out perfect. That's from side to side here with just the old digital calipers within 2,000ths thickness side to side. And you saw us flipping it, running it through multiple times, easing it down. My goodness, I couldn't ask for a better outcome than that. I think my sister-in-law is going to be pretty pleased with how this thing's running now. Got fresh blades. It's cutting really nice. The one thing I do like about this WEN brand is it has a granite table, which is pretty nice, I feel. The granite's flat, and it stays flat, and hot and cold don't really impact it so much as some of your, I've seen some with a steel bed and stuff. The other thing it adds to it is it adds a lot of ballast to the bottom of this thing, so it's got a little bit of heft to it, which is kind of nice. I could see where having this thing set up on an input and an output table, you could really plane you down a lot of really nice boards really fast with it. Anyway, pun intended, these things are just plain fun. Gotta, like all woodworking equipment, treat it with respect. Don't stick your hand up underneath there while it's running or even plugged in. But yeah, this one's good for another, I don't know, a couple years before it might get messed up again. Hopefully it never gets messed up again. I think it's a pretty slick machine, and hope you guys learned something from it. Now what's funny is that board measured 1 3/8. So I'm going to adjust this little adjuster thing here. So it reads 1 3/8. Talk about your crazy accuracy, because this little adjuster thing here has a little bit of wiggle room here. Looks like I can get it right on 1 3/8. No guesswork left there. All right. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it helpful and informative. Now, you guys know I like to work on outboards, and some of you have given me a little bit of crap, and I think I've lost some subscribers. I think I have. I put out a little bit of a gun video the other week. I lost 4 subscribers to the gun video. If you're not a gun enthusiast, I'm sorry. I am. And then I've lost just doing some other things that weren't necessarily outboard motor related. Now, you guys, when you signed onto this channel, I don't know when you signed on to it. I've been doing, over the past 2 to 3 years, been doing a variety of things. I really got heavily focused in outboard motors, and I still will be. It's hard to get motivated to work on the doggone things when it's 19 degrees in the morning and a high of 34 in the afternoon. It's not like I can take these things out, but I can also provide you guys more content. I do have an indoor testing tank here, as you've seen in my other videos, so I can run them indoors and at least give them a test run inside. But the true test is getting out in the lake and seeing what it does under the load of a boat and all that fun stuff too. But parts have been hard to come by. I shouldn't say hard to come by. They're expensive to come by for one. But sometimes to get it, if you start getting into gearboxes and stuff like that and you're trying to find some bearings and some seals, some of those can be a little tricky to find depending on the age of your equipment you're using. Anyway, we'll be digging into some more outboards here real soon. I promise. I've got a gearbox over here I need to get put back together for a little 9.9 or a 10 horse, I guess, Mercury. You guys have asked me about that one as well. Anyway, we're going to jump straight from this one. I got another thing I need to work on, my generator here. I've got it running in the last video or so ago, and I've got some more parts for it now that I know it runs. I'm willing to invest just a little bit more money into it. I'm going to show you how I'm going to utilize this generator in the case of a power outage. Now, some of you have generators. You run drop cords out to your refrigerator and your freezers in your house and stuff, and that's one way to do it. I'm going to show you another way to do it, so make sure you tune into the next video. I'm going to show you how I hook my generator up to the house. This is by no means a how-to video coming up. This is just how I did it, and if you do it at your own risk, period. I'll give you that precautionary tale up front here, but I'll also mention it several times in that particular video because this is just me doing things at my house, and you guys don't take me as instructional. This will be, let's just call it entertainment only. That's safe enough? Hey, you guys get out there and have some fun. Make sure your wood's flat. Keep your wood straight. And I'll see you on the next video. This is Michael saying have fun. And if it ain't broke, fix it till it is. See you on the next video. I'm out of here. Plain and simple. Plain good. Just a plain old good old boy here. That's all. I'm just trying to do things.